New boats cost more than a kidney on the black market, and half of them feel like floating Airbnbs with zero soul. Old boats? They smell like diesel, teak oil, and stories you can't stream on Netflix. Today, I'm handing you 10 legends that still smoke 90% of the plastic fantastic fleet for the price of a used pickup. We're talking blue water tanks, weekend rockets, and live-aboard castles that creak like your grandpa's war tales. Only these actually cross oceans. Grab a beer, kill the Wi-Fi, and let's meet the first rebel in 30 seconds. Fair winds, wallet intact. Afwan Contessa 32. She's 32 feet of pure British stubbornness, wrapped in fiberglass and bad weather karma. Picture a greyhound that swallowed an anchor, narrow, low, and grinning at 50-knot gusts like their Tuesday. Born in the early 70s on the drawing boards of David Sadler, the Contessa 32 was never meant to be pretty. She was meant to stay upright when the Atlantic tried to fold her in half. Full keel, 4.5 tons of displacement, and a ballast ratio that laughs at knockdowns. Sail her in a gale, and she'll round up, shake the green water off her shoulders, and ask for seconds. Step below, and the world shrinks to exactly what you need. A galley the size of a phone booth, a quarter berth that hugs you like a jealous lover, and a nav station where paper charts still rule. Headroom? Bring a haircut. Storage? Every locker is a Tetris PhD. Yet couples have disappeared into the roaring 40s with nothing more than a sextant and a kettle, and they came back grinning. On deck, the cockpit is a bathtub with drains. Sheets lead aft, winches are bronze, and the tiller feels like it was carved from Merlin's wand. Crack off on a reach, and she'll reel off 6.5 knots without breathing hard. Pinch her upwind, and she'll claw to 35 degrees like a cat on carpet. The rig is simple. Masthead sloop, no baby stay drama, no carbon nonsense. Replace a shroud in a Fijian boatyard with a hacksaw and a prayer. It's been done. Buy one for the price of a new Jeep. Spend another Jeep fixing the osmosis because every 40-year-old has blisters, and you still come out ahead of anything plastic that rolled off a conveyor belt last year. Sail her once in a proper blow, and you'll understand why the 1979 Fastnet became her baptism by fire. 6 crew lost on other boats. Every Contessa finished, most without a scratch. That's not marketing. That's physics wearing a sweater. She doesn't have Bluetooth or a microwave. She has a soul that hums louder than any sound system. Own a Contessa 32, and you don't just join a fleet. You inherit a brotherhood of salt-crusted lunatics who still wave at each other across oceans. Tight, tough, timeless. If the sea ever writes its own love letter, it'll be scribbled on a Contessa logbook in waterproof ink. 2. Ericsson 32-3. She slips into the anchorage like the cool kid who never needed a Letterman jacket. Launched in the Reagan years, the Ericsson 32-3 still looks like she just rolled out of the mold. Fine entry, flush deck, and a reverse transom that winks at every drone overhead. Under the waterline, she's pure 1980s muscle. Fin keel, spade rudder, 4,800 lb of lead saying, "Hold my beer" to quartering seas. Pinch her to 30 circuit de ground apparent, and she'll hiss along at 7 knots without a single cup of coffee rattling off the chart table. Crack the sheets, and she'll surf her own bow wave, like a Labrador chasing a tennis ball. Drop below, and the teak glows warmer than a dive bar neon sign. 6'4" headroom, a galley you can actually swing a frying pan in, and a V-berth that doesn't require yoga to enter. The dinette converts faster than a Tinder date, and the head has a shower hot enough to steam the salt off your soul. Tankage, 25 gallons water, 18 diesel. Enough for a lazy loop from Miami to the Exumas and back without begging marinas for favors. Rig is fractional bendy and loves a #1 Genoa. Roll up a 135% and she'll ghost along in 6 knots. Reef at 22 and she just shrugs. All lines lead aft under tidy fiberglass clutches. Single-handing feels like cheating. Buy one for the price of a new Tacoma. Spend a weekend sanding the topsides, and you're rewarded with a boat that still outsails 40-foot charter cats full of drunk influencers. Owners swear by the Ericsson lean. Helm balanced so perfectly, you can lash the tiller with a bungee and eat tacos in peace. Blister stories, ancient history. Every hull built after '86 got the good layup. The rest have been fixed by grandfathers who still remember how to use West System. Parts? Google Ericsson Yahoo Group and watch PDFs rain from heaven. Need a new port light? Some guy in San Diego has 12 in his garage and wants only a 6-pack for shipping. Sail her in the Santana winds off SoCal and she'll teach you what balanced helm really means. Beat home in 25 knots and your crew will still be laughing instead of puking. She's not a museum piece. She's a daily driver with a PhD in fun. Fast enough to win beer can races, roomy enough for a family of 4, plus a dog who thinks he's crew. Own an Ericsson 32.3 and every sunset tastes like a victory lap. 3 Pearson 33. She's the blue-collar rocket scientist built when over-engineered was still a compliment. Pearson Yachts hammered out the 33 between 78 and 83, back when a boat had to survive a New England winter tied to a piling without crying for a shrink. Walk the side deck and your footfalls echo like you're boarding a '57 Chevy. Solid, thick, no flex. Under the waterline sits a fin keel drawn by Bill Shaw himself. 4,200 lb of lead hung low enough to make 20 degrees heel feel like a gentle lean. Masthead rig, 44's air draft, and a sail area that grins at 15 knots. Sheet the 150% drifter and she'll log 7s before your playlist hits the chorus. Drop the companionway and the cabin smells like honest work. Teak sole, bulkheads you can lean on without apology, and a galley where the stove is gimbaled and the sink is deep enough to baptize a lobster. 6'3" headroom, 2 private cabins, and a dinette that seats 6 without anyone losing an elbow. Tankage is grown up, 33 gallons water, 22 diesel, 16 waste. Translation, you can island hop the Bahamas for 2 weeks without turning into a dock queen. Cockpit seats 8 for sundowners. Yet the coamings are high enough to keep your beer in the cup holder when the rail kisses green. Tiller steering, yes, Tiller on a 33-footer, talks to you in whispers. One finger at 18 knots and she still tracks like a bloodhound. Buy one for the price of a new SUV, spend $1,000 on a bottom job, and you're left with cash for a decent asymmetrical. Pearson owners swap war stories the way bikers trade patches. Need a new chain plate? Some guy in Rhode Island cut you a pattern on a CNC before breakfast. Blisters, fixed in the 90s, the receipts are in the bilge folder labeled bragging rights. Sailor in a Chesapeake squall, and she'll round up politely, shake the spray off her Dodger, and ask if you'd like another knot. Beat to windward in 25, and the leeward rail stays dry enough for selfies. She's fast enough to podium in the Wednesday night Twilight series, roomy enough for a family cruise to Block Island, and tough enough to laugh at the delivery skipper who swore she'd never make Bermuda. She did, twice. Own a Pearson 33, and every tack feels like a fist bump from 1981. 4 Catalina 30. She's the Ford F-150 of the water. 6,432 hulls launched since 1975. Still parked 3 deep at every fuel dock from San Diego to Sao Paulo. You can't swing a winch handle in a North American marina without kissing a Catalina 30 on the cheek. Step aboard and the cockpit swallows 8 adults plus a cooler the size of Delaware. Tiller or wheel, Edson or generic, every line lands in your lap like a golden retriever begging for a scratch. Sheet in the 135% and she'll ghost at 5 knots in a Zephyr. Roll out the Asim and she'll surf to 7 before your Caipirinha warms up. Drop below and the headroom hits 6'2" without apology. The L-shaped galley has a stove that actually browns pancakes, a fridge that keeps beer colder than your ex's heart, and counter space to roll dough while humming bossa nova. V-berth forward, quarter berth aft. Dinette that drops into a double wide enough for Netflix and chill. Tankage is weekend proof. 25 gallons water, 18 diesel, 16 waste. Translation, Friday after work to Monday sunrise without sniffing a marina hose. Under the waterline, she's fin keel forgiving. 4,000 lb ballast. 10-10 beam that feels like a ballroom once you're hooked. Draft 5'3" with the board up means you can sneak into that Bahian anchorage that charter cats only dream about on Instagram. Rig is masthead simple. 1 set of spreaders, 1 backstay, 0 hydraulic voodoo. Reef, At 20 knots, and she just nods. Shake it out at 12, and she giggles. Buy one for the price of a new Honda Civic. Spend a weekend scrubbing the topsides, and you still have beer money left for Carnival. Catalina owners speak fluent swap meet. Need a hatch lens. Some dude in Annapolis has a pallet. Want a new rudder? A guy in St. Pete will ship it for a selfie with your dog. Sail her in the Abrolhos with 25 knots on the beam, and she'll round up politely, shake the spray off the Dodger, and ask if you'd like another knot. Beat home against the tide, and the leeward rail stays dry enough for caipirinhas. She's not built for the Southern Ocean, but she'll island hop the Caribbean, weekend race the Guanabara Bay, or live aboard in Floripa while you chase remote gigs. Own a Catalina 30, and every sunset comes with a built-in party invitation. 5. West Sail 32. She's a brick house dressed in salt. 47 years old and still built like the day she bullied her way out of Costa Mesa. 10 tons of hand-laid glass, a full keel that drags 4 feet of iron and 4 feet of stubborn, and a bowsprit long enough to knight anyone who dares climb it in a seaway. Sail her in 40 knots and the rail never kisses green. She just leans 8 degrees, nods, and keeps marching. The motion is a slow-motion waltz. Rise, pause, sigh, repeat. Coffee stays in the mug, the dog stays asleep, and the off-watch crew swears the boat is humming lullabies in 6/8 time. Drop below and the teak smells like your grandfather's pipe. 6-foot headroom only where it counts, a galley that forces you to dance with the stove, and a saloon table scarred by 40 years of passage plans drawn in rum. Quarter berth swallows a 6'4" human and spits out a rested one 8 hours later. Head is a phone booth with a throne. Shower is a fantasy you solve with a solar bag on the boom. Tankage is apocalypse ready. 80 gallons water, 60 diesel, 30 waste. Translation: Panama to Marquesas without sniffing a dock. Chain locker eats $300 of 3-rate BBB and still has room for the spare anchor you'll never need because the 45 lb CQR never drags. Rig is cutter simple. Staysail stays put. Yankee flies high, and the running backstays are the only thing you touch when the wind pipes past 30. Reef early, reef often, reef again for fun. She just smiles and keeps the same 5.2 knots through the troughs. Buy one for the price of a new Sprinter van. Spend another van fixing the inevitable deck leaks, and you still own the only boat in the anchorage that makes super yacht captains whisper, respect. Owners trade scars like baseball cards. My chain plate pulled in the Tasman. Mine delaminated off Chile. Hold my beer. I record the cabin top with a bread knife in Samoa. West Sail Facebook group has more epoxy recipes than Pinterest. Sail her across the Pacific, and the trades treat her like royalty. Surf a swell at midnight, and the wake glows blue so bright you can read the logbook by it. Drop the hook in Fatuhiva, and the village kids swim out just to touch the hull that ate oceans for breakfast. She's slow, heavy, and proud of it. Speed is for people with deadlines. West Sail 32 is for people with horizons. Own one, and every sunrise comes with a silent promise. I've carried dreamers before you, I'll carry you home. 6. Alberg 37. She glides into the anchorage like a 1940s film star who never aged. Long overhangs, low freeboard, and a sheer line that makes poets reach for their fountain pens. Carl Alberg drew her in 1967 with one brief: build me a boat that can sail to Norway and still look classy tied to a lobster dock in Maine. Mission accomplished. Under the water she's pure Scandinavian DNA. Full keel, 7 draft, 13 through 300 lb of lead, hung so low the horizon begs for mercy. Hang 15 knots on the quarter, and she'll log 6 knots without waking the cat. Beat into a Gulf of Maine chop, and the bow parts waves like Moses on a coffee break. Motion. Think rocking chair on morphine. Drop the companionway, and the cabin smells like a cedar sauna that swallowed a library. 6'5" headroom under the hatch, teak everywhere your eyes land, and a fireplace, yes, a real Dickinson diesel heater that turns January in Nova Scotia into sweater weather. Galley runs port to starboard. You can braise a moose shank while the boat sails herself on the monitor wind vane. V berth forward, pilot berth aft, and a saloon table that has hosted more passage plans than No AA. Tankage is transatlantic rude, 65 gallons water, 45 diesel, 25 waste. Translation, St. John's to Galway without a single fuel stop. Ground tackle lives in a horsepipe the size of a mailbox. 300ths of chain laughs at 90-foot depths. Rig is catch or yawl, pick your poison. Both so under-canvassed, you'll reef only when the barometer commits suicide. Staysail stays put. Mizzen keeps the stern from skating, and the main is cut so flat you can iron shirts on it. All halyards land at the mast. Stepping forward in a seaway feels like a trust exercise with Poseidon. Buy one for the price of a new Airstream, spend another Airstream refastening the chain plates, and you still own the only boat in the harbour that makes wooden boat snobs weep into their gin. Alberg owners speak in latitudes. Mine rounded Cape Horn with a jury-rigged mizzen. Mine waited out a hurricane in the Azores with nothing but a storm jib and a bottle of aquavit. The Facebook group has more circumnavigation patches than a biker bar. Sail her from Rio to Tristan da Cunha, and the Southern Ocean will bow. Drop the hook in South Georgia, and the penguins will line up for selfies. She's not fast, she's inevitable. Own an Alberg 37, and every sunrise comes with a handwritten invitation from the sea. Come, we've been expecting you since 1967. 7. Pearson 365. She's the offshore pickup truck that never learned the word quit. Launched in the mid-70s when Jimmy Carter was president and diesel still smelled like victory, the Pearson 365 was drawn by Bill Shaw with a single post-it. Make it tough, make it roomy, make it forgive idiots. Nailed it. Walk the deck and your boots land on fiberglass thick enough to stop a 38. Under the waterline hides a modified full keel with a skeg rudder that laughs at floating containers. 11 tons total, 4,800 lb of lead, and a 12/6 beam that feels like a warehouse once you're hooked. Drop 20 knots on the beam and she'll hold 7 knots without spilling the mate. Drop below and the teak hits you like a hug from a lumberjack. 6'6" headroom everywhere that matters, a galley you can cook feijoada in without elbow checking the navigator, and a U-shaped dinette that seats 6 plus the dog who thinks he's people. V-berth forward, quarter berth aft, and a workbench that doubles as a nav station when the laptop battery dies. Tankage is see you in Galapagos, 100 gallons water, 50 diesel, 30 waste. Translation, Panama to Nuku Hiva with water left for showers. Chain locker swallows 220 keys of 3-rated and still has room for the spare anchor you'll brag about in every bar from here to Tahiti. Rig is ketch or cutter, both work. Both so balanced you can lash the wheel with a shoelace and eat acarajé in peace. Mizzen keeps the bow from wandering, staysail keeps the slot honest, and the main is cut so flat you can play cards on it. Reef at 25, reef again at 30, laugh at 40. She just keeps the same 6.8 knots through the slop. Buy one for the price of a new Tacoma, spend another Tacoma on new chain plates and a bottom job, and you still own the only boat in the anchorage that makes catamaran owners whisper, maybe we overpaid. Pearson 365 owners speak fluent diesel. Mine crossed the ITCZ with a busted alternator and a bicycle generator. Mine rode out a Pampero off Uruguay with nothing but a storm trysail and a bottle of cachaça. The email list has more spare parts than West Marine. Sail her from Paraty to Fernando de Noronha, and the trades will treat her like family. Drop the hook in Atol das Rocas, and the turtles will pose for GoPro. She's not pretty, she's bulletproof. Own a Pearson 365, and every sunrise comes with a quiet promise. I carried families before you, I'll carry yours home too. 8. Valiant 40. She's the boat that walked into the 1970s cruiser bar, ordered a double espresso, and told the slow and safe crowd and the fast and fragile crowd to scoot over. One glance at the reverse transom, the canoe stern, and the cutter bow that looks photoshopped onto a torpedo, and you know the Valiant 40 rewrote the rule book. Under the waterline sits a fin keel so deep the designer had to sign a waiver with Neptune. Skeg-hung rudder, 45% ballast ratio, and a displacement that lets her carry a month of provisions without noticing. Sheet the 110% Yankee, roll out the staysail, and she'll reel off 7.5 knots in 14 true, like a freight train with manners. Pinch her to 28 to ground apparent, and the knot meter still refuses to dip below 6. Drop below, and the cabin smells like a shipyard that won the lottery. 6'7" headroom under the dome, teak joinery tight enough to make a Swiss watchmaker jealous, and a galley where the stove is bolted to the hull instead of the other way around. U-shaped dinette becomes a sea berth in one click. Aft cabin swallows a queen mattress and still has room for ego. Nav station faces forward. You plot on a real table while the autopilot earns its keep. Tankage is see you in New Zealand. 120 gallons water, 85 diesel, 40 waste. Translation, you can sail from Bahia to Cape Town and still have water for sundowners in False Bay. Ground tackle lives in a locker the size of a studio apartment. 300 hours of 3x2 chain plus a 66 Lilby Bruce that sets so fast fish file complaints. Rig is cutter perfection. Inner forestay never sags, runners never snag, and the carbon fiber spinnaker pole weighs less than your ego. Reef at 28, shake it out at 15. Laugh at 35. The hull just shrugs and keeps the rail an inch above the foam. Buy one for the price of a new Tesla Model Y. Spend another Tesla on blister surgery. Early boats drank bad resin in '79, and you still own the only 40-footer that makes 50-footers look overgunned. Valiant owners speak in passport stamps. Mine rounded the Horn with a crew of 2 and a parrot. Mine waited out Cyclone Winston in Fiji on 60 hours of chain and a bottle of Mount Gay. The Yahoo Group has more spare blister patches than a dermatologist. Sail her from Ilhabela to Tristan da Cunha, and the 40s will treat her like a local. Drop the hook in Jamestown, and the islanders will row out just to run their hands along the canoe stern. She's fast, safe, and smug about it. Own a Valiant 40, and every sunrise comes with a wink from the ocean. Ready for another 200-mile day, amigo. 9 Pacific Seacraft, 34. She's the pocket-sized fortress that made grown sailors cancel their retirement plans. Built in the 80s by a yard that treated every hull like a love letter to the Pacific, the PS-34 is 34 feet of "Yes, I can," wrapped in hand-laid glass, thick enough to stop a harpoon. Under the waterline lurks a full keel with a cutaway forefoot. Best of both worlds. Tracks like a freight train, turns like a sports car. 7 tons total, 40% ballast hung so low, the horizon files a restraining order. Hang 18 knots on the quarter, and she'll log 6.8 knots without waking the off-watch. Beat into a South Atlantic swell, and the bow slices clean. The stern follows, and the coffee never jumps the fiddle. Drop below, and the teak glows like cachaça in candlelight. 6'4" headroom under the hatch, a galley you can fry moqueca in while humming bossa nova, and a saloon settee that converts into a sea berth faster than Rio traffic. V-berth forward swallows a 6 and 6 human and still has room for a guitar. Quarter berth aft doubles as a laundry basket when the trades are kind. Denkages see you in Hiva Oa, 60 gallons water, 40 diesel, 25 waste. Translation, Salvador to St. Helena with water left for caipirinhas. Chain locker eats 250 of 3/8 and still has space for the spare anchor you'll Instagram in every port. Rig is cutter sweet. Yankee flies high, staysail stays honest, and the inner forestay never sags. All lines lead aft through clutches, slicker than Ipanema sidewalks. Single hand from Fernando de Noronha to Barbados, and the Monitor wind vane steers straighter than your Uber driver. Buy one for the price of a new Hilux. Spend another Hilux on new standing rigging and a bottom job, and you still own the only 34-footer that makes 40-foot charter cats look like floating bathtubs. PS-34 owners speak in latitudes. Mine rode out a Force 10 off Recife with nothing but a storm jib and a bottle of cachaça. Mine waited out Pam in Grenada on 40s of chain and a smile. The owner's forum has more circumnavigation patches than a biker vest. Sail her from Paraty to the Marquesas and the trades will treat her like royalty. Drop the hook in Hanevav Bay and the locals will paddle out just to touch the brass dorade vents that still shine like 1987. She's small, bulletproof and smug about it. Own a Pacific Seacraft 34 and every sunrise comes with a postcard from the ocean. Wish you were here. Bring sunscreen and dreams. 10. Hinkley Bermuda 40. She's the nautical equivalent of a 62 Jaguar E-Type that still wins Pebble Beach. Long hood, longer legs, and varnish so deep you can see yesterday in it. Hinkley launched the Bermuda 40 in 1959 with one sentence on the blueprint: build the prettiest boat that can still cross an ocean before breakfast. 66 years later, every head still swivels when she ghosts past. Under the waterline hides a full keel drawn by Sparkman and Stevens on a dare. 7.6 draft, 19,000 lb displacement and 9,000 lb of lead hung so low the center of gravity files taxes in the Mariana Trench. Hang 22 knots on the quarter and she'll log 7.2 knots without wrinkling her dodger. Beat into a nor'easter and the bronze centerboard kisses the keel slot like a secret handshake. Motion, think metronome wrapped in cashmere. Drop the companionway and the cabin smells like a Newport mansion that learned to float. 6'6" headroom everywhere, teak joinery tighter than a Rolex, and a galley where the gimbaled shipmate stove has browned more lobsters than the state of Maine. Herreshoff interior, settees long enough for afternoon naps, pilot berths that swallow 6'4" humans, and a fireplace, yes, a real one, that turns January in Patagonia into sweater weather. Tankage is transatlantic rude, 90 gallons water, 55 diesel, 30 waste. Translation: Rio to Cape Town with water left for sundowners in Table Bay. Chain locker eats 300 of 3-8 and still has room for the spare Danforth you'll polish every equinox. Rig is yawl perfection, main, mizzen, and a club-footed staysail that furls itself when you sneeze. All halyards land on bronze Merriman winches older than your dad and twice as strong. Reef at 30, shake it out at 12, laugh at 40. The hull just leans 8 degrees and keeps the champagne flutes upright. Buy one for the price of a downtown condo, spend another condo on new teak decks and a total refastening, and you still own the only boat that makes superyacht brokers whisper, maybe we underpriced elegance. Hinkley owners speak in invitations. Meet us in Bequia. We'll save you the mooring next to the Queen. Bring the good rum, the fireplace is lit. The email list has more black tie circumnavigators than a yacht club ballroom. Sail her from Buzios to Antarctica and the Fort 8 IEs will curtsy. Drop the hook in Port Lockroy and the penguins will pose on the bowsprit for postcards. She's not cheap, she's priceless. Own a Hinkley Bermuda 40 and every sunrise comes with a handwritten note from the sea. Dress code, barefoot, heart open, varnish optional. 10 boats, 10 lifetimes under the keel. From the Contessa that laughed at Fastnet to the Hinkley that still makes millionaires blush, every hull on this list has carried dreamers farther than their bank accounts ever dared. They creak, they leak, they smell like diesel and hope, and they'll outlive every plastic fantastic that rolled off a robot line last Tuesday. You don't buy these boats, you adopt them. You patch their scars, you varnish their soul, and in return they hand you sunrises in places Google Maps still calls unreachable. So here's the deal, skipper. Pick one, fix one, sail one. Post your first blister, your first 200-mile day, your first "I can't believe this old girl just did that" selfie, and tag it at your old boat new legend. I'll be watching from the bow of whatever creaky classic I'm wrestling this week. Drop your favorite below, or the one you secretly just wired the deposit for. Hit subscribe so the next list finds you before the next low pressure does. Fair winds, full tanks, and may your bilge stay drier than your excuses. See you on the other side of the horizon.